We know one thing we know about Kamala Harris is that when she stumbles on a line that she likes, she will, even if nobody else likes it. But
wait, this is the strategy? You're going to do the same thing that the RNC? Do you know that the RNC strategists are the ones that created the entire coconut tree pilled revolutions shit? Like, they were the ones that first put that clip out there, and even before anyone even had like a hint that maybe Kamala Harris could change course and really change, you know, U.S. electoral history here and perhaps be way better than her predecessor before any of that kind of stuff came along. I remember seeing that clip and just sharing it with friends and being like, you know, I hate Kamala, but I gotta admit, this clip's funny. Alright, I want to see what Matt Walsh has to say. Apparently he's mad about everything getting too racist.
Majority of pledged Democratic convention delegates have endorsed
We're not racist enough.
Kamala Harris, who said Monday in her first campaign remarks as a presidential candidate that she knows how to take on Republican Donald Trump. Harris has been quickly consolidating support around her day-old bid for the Democratic nomination for president, with seemingly all of her major potential rivals rallying around her less than 24 hours after Joe Biden announced he was bowing out. Okay, so Harris has locked up a majority of the delegates. She has all the donors. She has all the endorsements. All of her potential challengers have kissed the ring. So she's the nominee. You know, barring some unforeseen event, which you certainly can't bar, as we have learned. But barring that, she's the nominee. You may remember all the way back to yesterday when Harris was claiming that she would do everything she could to earn the nomination. Well, it turns out that process took about 12 hours. You know, when she said that she'd fight for the nomination, she meant that she would wait 12 hours and then announce herself the presumptive nominee, which is what happened. And now, after a long campaign of half a day, she has it all sewed up. The whole thing's a farce, of course. It was a coronation from the very beginning. Nobody of any note on the Democrat side had the balls to say anything about it or challenge it or in any way. You know, no one was going to throw their hat in the ring. It wasn't going to happen. But I suppose the good news now is that Republicans know that it's going to be Harris. They can play the game. They can game plan now accordingly. And
boy, have they ever. Especially the pundit class. I have just seen a outpouring of the weirdest and grossest shit, just fucking fast and furious. So much of it happening so rapidly that like they actually had to have people step out, like, you know, GOP fucking head executives coming forward and being like, can y'all just tone down the racism? It's pretty aggressive. Maybe the sexism too, a little bit. Yeah, obviously. I mean, I don't think they've realized that, like, you know, Vice President Harris emits mom energy. And that mum energy is what a lot of people are tapping into for the whole mamala and the memes and all that kind of stuff like that. It's really bizarre to try and take that and then turn it into, yeah, but she fucked and sucked her way to the top, and that's why she doesn't have kids, and blah, blah, blah. And Laura Loomer being like, yeah, her uterus is broken and polluted and stuff like that. I was like, I mean, fucking just keep going, you weird freaks. Just keep going sicko mode. Just, again, unbelievably alienating, you know, not just to half the population that you were denigrating while you speak like that, but also to, you know, men who are also disgusted by this, who are also reviled by this constant dehumanization of women and wanting to police and control their bodies and remove their autonomy and all that kind of shit. Like, there's enough people who are just reviled by that very concept alone that the fact that you are all leaning into it, I think will be disastrous for them.
I think it's going to take a smart game plan to beat her. Like I said, the overconfidence on the right now is very concerning, because we can make all the jokes about Harris that we want, and I've made plenty of them. I'll continue to make them because it's fun to mock her. She deserves it. But it is going to be a challenge. And if you think that Trump is just going to stroll easily into the White House now, then...
See, he's doing this a couple days later, by the way. What happened initially was a bit of a panic mode. And, like, Trump is still in that panic mode. He's still tweeting about Joe Biden and being like, when is Joe Biden going to wake up and realize that, like, he has to actually run as the vice president and shit like that? Because the playbook was pretty simple going forward. Joe Biden's way too old to be a presidential candidate. He is clearly in the middle of cognitive decline. And at this point, you know, it's a disgrace that they're even trying to say that this man can maintain and continue to be the president for the next couple months, let alone for the next 4 years. Then when he drops out, the entire playbook is thrown out. And it's like, well, what do we have on Kamala Harris? The cop stuff isn't going to work, because we're definitely not going to be able to go to the left of her on crime. That one won't do at all good with our base. We could do the usual, just, birtherism. She isn't a real American because she's not white, but people are a little more savvy to just the, fucking outright racism of all of that. We could go the sexist route. I guess we'll try that out. We'll play in that arena at first, and you know what? Fuck it. Racism too. Racism and sexism. We'll just start smashing those buttons and see. And then it's like, okay, all right, y'all went a little too aggressive. Let's dial that back. It's not looking as exciting as it was before. There seems to be this enormous groundswell right now, not only breaking historical U.S. fundraising records. I believe it was like 60% of people who donated the day of that historic day were new first-time donos. So that's like, whoa, there's something else going on here. If you look at TikTok, it's like, well, it's somehow just complete, I don't know, Donald over, does that work? Done over? But either way, TikTok, it's cooked in terms of like, they are just outwardly pouring out all of these coconut tree peeled memes and shit. And I know it doesn't really make sense to the right, but like that, they've lost that. So what route do we go now? What's the next strategy?
And I think you're delusional. It's gonna be a fight no matter what. And it could be a very difficult fight if the Democrats are smart enough to play this right, because they have a chance to rebrand Harris as she moves into the spotlight. And there's been moments like this now on both sides where you have this historic thing that happens, and if you play it right, you can use it as a reset button. And Kamala Harris, more than anyone in politics, needs a reset button. So this is a time to set the narrative for both Republicans and Democrats. The whole race has changed, and so there's going to be a new narrative. And one side or the other is going to decide what the narrative is. That's the way it goes, and whoever sets it successfully will probably win. There are some concerning indications that the Democrats are concocting what might be an effective strategy. So I'll play this one moment from Harris's address.
They're scared. You can really feel how everything changed. The winds completely transformed because, like, up until the RNC, especially after the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, they were fucking full confidence mode. Jack Posobiec, aka N Wokeness too, right? Just straight up like replying to, liberal pundits and stuff like, your time is coming, get ready for the wall, kind of stuff like that. Like, you could tell they had this in as a sure lock. This was a done deal. There's absolutely nothing to worry about. Yeah, I mean, JD Vance is a risky pick, but whatever. We have confidence in our fearless leader. I'm sure he won't lead us astray and pick some couch fucking weirdo. Let's get him out there and let's start this whole process. And then after that week, it was only right-wingers and far-righters who actually really cared about the assassination attempt. Everyone else was kind of like, on to the next thing. And now the fact that Joe Biden has stepped down completely taken all of the oxygen out of the room in terms of all their ability to really, maintain and push the narrative. Now, the media has done what the media does, which is it follows the story. And the story now is, of course, this movement of hope, of change. Kamala, Mamala. What's going on here? What are all these kids with coconut tree emojis in their names? And why are they posting all these memes? And I don't quite understand. What is this? Skibidi coconut tree? Well, yeah, sure. I mean, whatever it takes, right? At this point.
Rest of our campaign staff yesterday. Here's a line, and you're going to hear this line 70,000 times, so, get used to it. But between now and November, you're going to hear it over and over and over again. Especially because we know one thing we know about Kamala Harris is that when she stumbles on a line that she likes, she will, even if nobody else likes it. But
wait, this is the strategy? You're going to do the same thing that the RNC? Do you know that the RNC strategists are the ones that created the entire coconut tree pilled revolutions shit? Like, they were the ones that first put that clip out there. And even before anyone even had like a hint that maybe Kamala Harris could change course and really change, U.S. electoral history here and perhaps be way better than her predecessor before any of that kind of stuff came along. I remember seeing that clip and just sharing it with friends and being like, I hate Kamala, but I gotta admit, this clip's funny. It's like, I don't know what she's on, what beautiful cocktails taking place here, but I really hope that she shares it with like the world, just one of those things, because not only is she having a great time, this seems like, a post brunch mimosa fucking, moment. It's kind of endearing. I'm no fan of hers, but it is certainly endearing to hear her talking about, you think you fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context in which you live and all that came before you. And you're like, what? Who talks like this? And who talks like this and is also very pleasant who talks like this, right? Like, I can see someone who's just like deeply, deeply obsessed with philosophy to be sitting there and then being like, did you know that you exist in the context of all in which you live and that which came before you? And I'd be like, yeah, sure. I guess I do want the fries with the burger though. But in this case, it's like, well, that's a slightly humanizing moment, right? And that slightly humanizing moment has been turned into an entire fucking movement, an entire meme factory. And now they're doing the same thing. Is he gonna pull? He is. He's pulling up the compilation they made.
Together with you, we'll do everything in my power to unite our Democratic Party, to unite our nation, and to win this election. You know, as
like I've seen these copy pastas before, and they're awesome. Of course, fucking irony-pilled Gen Z 2 is gonna start fucking going hard into nonsense. Of course, it makes perfect sense to me.
many of you know, before I was elected as vice president, before I was elected as United States Senator, I was the elected Attorney General, as I've mentioned, of California. Before that, I was a courtroom prosecutor. In those roles, I took on perpetrators of all kinds.
Okay, I apologize. They're not playing the compilation of her saying the same line over and over.
Predators who abused women. Fraudsters who ripped off consumers. Cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type.
Okay. I know Donald Trump's type. You're gonna hear that, as I said a million times. She's gonna say it in the debate. Call it right now. That line is gonna be said at the debate.
Cool.
And conservatives are scoffing at this
Call him a rapist to his face.
line, but scoffing's not gonna be enough. And I think conservatives are scoffing at it because they're saying, oh yeah, like this is what you guys have been trying to do. You've been trying to paint Trump as a criminal and it hasn't landed. Not only has it not landed, but it has backfired fantastically against you. And so I think that's why many on the right are seeing that and saying, okay, yeah, go run with that. Yes, it's absurd to compare Trump to any of those types of criminals. It's absurd to claim that Trump is a criminal at all. He was convicted, yes, but in a political show trial. He's not really a criminal. He didn't actually.
I mean, yeah, I mean, he is technically a convicted criminal. I mean, that part is true. Somewhere, what is it, 37, 38, 42, 42.5 counts? I don't know, either way. But I mean, those aren't real crimes. Yeah, those are fake crimes. Yeah, I think people call them white collar, something like that.
Break the law.
34. Thank you, 34.
And that's the truth.
Rule
but
34.
Of course, the truth doesn't matter in politics. All that matters is what people believe the truth to be. And but I think that this kind of angle presents a challenge, and I'll explain what it is. And it's not even really about bringing up the fact that Trump's been convicted of a quote unquote crime.
Ooh, I think what Matt's going to be putting me in is a very awkward position here. Like, how, Lance, do you, someone who's an abolitionist and criticize police all the time, what position are you going to take? Are you suddenly going to throw away all your beliefs and suddenly, just to go against the right, suddenly defend her criminal record? I should say prosecutional record, by the way, just to be clear. And so I have spoken to some friends of mine who happen to be public defenders, to learn more about this, who have gone into her track record. And it is certainly something that there is no dispute that if you are acting, doesn't matter where you are in the United States, if you are acting as a district attorney, that you are going to be incarcerating disproportionately Black and brown people in the United States. That is just 100% true. That is a matter of fact. And no one should discount or downplay or even try and absolve someone of that, right? At the end of the day, that was a role that you played. At the same time, and this is not just the butt of it all, but at the same time, the same stats that were being thrown out that now the right are trying to step away from and back down from, or try to use as a weapon, trying to be like, well, what about low-level marijuana offenses? Statistically, more than her predecessor, she lowered the amount of people who are incarcerated, I think, for low-level marijuana possession, which does disproportionately affect Black Americans, by 66%. And that wasn't simply because of her own decision-making, but because she had been supporting a number of pilot programs that eventually became laws in California that resulted in less people having to be criminally prosecuted for low-level offenses like marijuana possession. So in that case, you can say that she was better than her predecessor and that she lowered the percentage of people who are suddenly going to jail for that. Does that make it good? No. It's kind of like the idea of the benevolent cop, right? Are there cops who become cops not because that they are bullies or racists or white supremacists or just want to be as close to the ability to crack poor people's skulls in, who actually legitimately become cops because they want to help society, and this is the way they see as the pathway to do that? Of course there are. There are people who join it. The reason why people say things like all cops are bastards are specifically that it doesn't matter what your intentions are, you are working within a system that by its very institution is going to have you oppressing poor people, which will disproportionately be minorities. It's not acting solely within the interest of keeping all of society safe. It's acting within the interest of keeping those with a lot of capital safer. That's how the whole system works. So it doesn't matter if you are the good cop or the benevolent cop or the cop with like the heart of gold who just really wants to go catch rapists and horrifying men, and that's why you join the force, and it's to be able to make society safer, right? The truth of the matter is that you are disproportionately going to be harassing, interrogating, stopping people who are poor. People who are poor are the ones who are going to be profiled. Oftentimes people who are part of, again, visible minorities are going to be profiled even further, and they're the ones who are going to be harassed on a regular basis, and that's just part of the system. So it's less that every single cop or every single person who wants to be a cop or every single person who even aspires to one day join the force is in their heart a bastard, and that's how they become they become the bastards by virtue of working within that institution specifically, right? I know people were saying the same thing about arms dealers, because the arms dealer who quit, who was part of Joe Biden's administration, apparently considered himself to be a benevolent arms dealer, and that he knew that someone else in his position would do even more damage and cause more suffering upon the world, that this was going to happen whether he was or was not a part of the system, so that he became the benevolent arms dealer. And just by definition, I don't think there is such a thing. I'm sorry, there's no such thing as the benevolent arms dealer, the good one, at the end of the day. But it's going to be really funny seeing them pretzel themselves over this, because like, where do you go with that? Do you go towards the more nuanced approach that is going to be a little bit to the right of the left, where suddenly you're being like, well, she did do a lot of kind of reform while she was acting as the DA, and during that time, she did actually lower the rate of people who were being mass incarcerated for things like low-level possession that dropped under her tenure? Are you going to go to the left of the fucking liberals, which would not work for you at all, where all of a sudden you guys are starting to be a little bit more ACAB and being like, oh, well, a lot of people are unfairly persecuted, this criminal record shit, what do we have to say about that?
That's not even, like, when I hear that, there's a part of me that says, uh-oh. And it's not because she's bringing up the Trump stuff. That's got nothing to do with it. Here's what it is. There are two versions of Kamala Harris. The first version is the courtroom prosecutor who was attacked for being too zealous in prosecuting supposed nonviolent drug offenses. The tough as nails prosecutor who's going after the bad guys. Again, is that the reality? Is that really who she was? No, but that's the version. Like, that's one brand that they could try to go with. The second version, the second brand, is the bleeding heart liberal who bailed out BLM protesters, rioters. But now, the best case is that she runs as the second version, right? Running as the defender of rioters and criminals and looters. That's best case. That's what we want. Go ahead and run that campaign. But if she runs as the first, and that line you just heard is the first version talking, then it's a challenge, because then what will happen is that Democrats, rather than in the midst of this crime-infested society we live in, and people are fed up, just sick to death of living in communities that are unsafe. And
overall crime is down, by the way, since Joe Biden took office. I know they're going to be doing that same line they always do. It's like, our cities are flooded with crime-infested MS-13, Hamas, Hezbollah agents funded by Iran and George Soros, destroying society. Like, you're going to hear all that shit, but I was just like, it does not maths.
They can't bring their kids out in public and all that kind of stuff. Rather than Democrats doing what they've done for so long, which is to like tell us that we should like that, or deny that it's happening, or tell us that we should feel more sorry for the criminals. Rather than doing that, what you just heard there, it's just one little snippet, but that would represent the Democrats trying to go the other way and trying to outflank the Republicans on crime to the right, right? So if Harris pretends to be the toughest nails prosecutor who fought for justice and locked up bad guys, that would be her running to the right on crime, which is where the American public is, because people are sick of the crime epidemic. They are, as I said, they're tired of living in communities that are unsafe. Now, if Harris did try to move right on crime, or right, I don't even know what my right and left anymore. If she did try to move to the right on crime, it shouldn't be a major problem because it can be countered really easily, right? So when I say it's kind of if they're thinking this and you think, uh-oh, you know, this might be a problem, it's not because there's anything about that move that's really difficult to counter. You should be able to counter it easily because, first of all, point out the fact that she took the side of violent rioters. You could point that out, bailed them out, funded them. You could also argue that her version of law and order is lawfare against her political opponents, which is true. So basically, your response to that, when she tries to present herself as this prosecutorial gladiator, you know, taking on the bad guys, your response is that's not true. You're full of it. And you know the people that you were really taking on were your political opponents, who you tried to lock in jail for your own political gain. So that could be the response.
I'm sorry. Do you have a single point yet? This is almost the entire video. We could do that. We could do this. Should we do that? Should we do this? What if we did this?
My great fear is that the Republicans decide that is the good response. Okay, so you're not going to be the bleeding heart liberal on crime, then we will. And now we're going to be the ones saying that's actually the justice system is rigged against black.
It is pretty fucking funny. Because like this is putting them in such an awkward position. Like, how do we even operate here? Do we operate to the left or to the right? Do we act as if we are suddenly for like police reform, for prison reform, any of that kind of stuff? Do we have to give in to this mythology that they've sold us that apparently disproportionately affects people of color? Or do we just go to the right of her, but also we have to do that while supporting a convicted criminal? What are we supposed to do? Like I saw him posting this. This is exactly what I'm worried about. Trying to hit Kamala from the left on crime is not the right move. The American public is not in the mood to feel sympathy for criminals who go to jail for low-level offenses, and who cares if they're black? And then the the Trump War Room did meet Jalil Stallings in June 2020. Stallings was charged with attempted murder of 2 police officers during the 2020 riots. Kamala Harris raised money to bail Stallings out of jail. Kamala Harris is radically liberal and dangerously incompetent, and then got community noted. Stallings is a veteran who was found not guilty after the cops shot him from an unmarked van because he was out past curfew. A jury found that Stallings, who had been concealed carry permit, acted in self-defense and settled for $1.5 million. So the right doesn't know what to do, right? Like, how exactly did you play this?
People, it is racist. And now we're the ones standing up for you. Yeah, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope that's not the move. It would be disastrous, absolutely disastrous, because the Democrats, no matter what they try to do, they are very vulnerable on the crime issue. It is an easy issue for Republicans. It is an easy win. And they can do whatever they want. They can go left, they can go right. What they can't escape is their own history, their own very recent history, what they have said and, more importantly, done. They can't escape that unless you let them escape it. So let's please not do that. And the last thing I'll say about this is Tulsi Gabbard had a moment in the Democrat primaries.
Thank you, Comrade Junkie, for the $2 donut.
Kamala Harris.
And yes, they will just lie.
On the locking up nonviolent drug offenders and that sort of thing. And that's another one. I've seen that. I've seen Republicans sharing that clip and saying, "Oh, remember when Harris got totally owned by Tulsi Gabbard on this issue?" Yeah, that worked as an attack by Tulsi Gabbard against Kamala Harris. It worked at the time. Okay, that was before a summer of race riots, and more importantly, it was in a Democrat primary. Okay, so if you are taking
it only appeals to right wingers. There's no deluded liberal who thinks that Tulsi Gabbard is an actual enlightened centrist and is simply capable of figuring out that, like, I just don't have a political home. You know, I don't really feel that I'm a member of the RNC or I'm a member of the Republican Party, but I feel betrayed by, you know, the Democratic establishment who's been kidnapped by the woke mind virus, and they've turned them all into wokies. So I don't know where I land. I was like, no, you're just a Republican. You know, every fucking time it's like, well, I just happen to be a centrist who doesn't have a political house, and it's like, mask off, boom, yeah, right winger, of course.
If you're taking a tax that worked in a Democrat primary and trying them as a Republican in a general election, then you don't know the first thing about politics. So it might have worked then in that context for that person to be attacking that other person in that way, in that specific context. It will not work here. And you shouldn't even try, and you shouldn't need to.
Okay, so there's a very clearly frightened Matt Walsh saying Republicans stay away from the crime and cop and convict issue. Do not touch this. This is dangerous. We don't know how to navigate it. We are clearly flailing while we're trying, and it's scary and weird to us. And so, you know, maybe stick with good old-fashioned racism.
What's happening in this country, it's Nazism. Republicans are Nazis. You cannot separate yourselves from the bad white people.
Growing up in the 90s, I never thought much about race. Sure, you noticed, but never really seemed to matter that much, at least not to me.
Being a white, straight, cisgender man is the top of the pile.
I'm on the top of the pile. That's me. Am I racist?
I would really appreciate it if you left.
I'm trying to learn. I'm on this journey.
Can you please leave?
If I'm going to sort this out, I need to go deeper undercover. If I want to be an ally, I need to look like one.
You know what's so great about this is Joe Rogan, someone who actually does appreciate and respect comedy. He was willing to give him a pass because, come on, let's be real. Matt Walsh is not funny, deeply untalented, very, very hard man to listen to. He's not a naturally gifted comedian in any way, shape, or form. Not a good performer, not ironically funny. He's just very unpleasant, a very unpleasant human to have to listen to. But they were willing to give him a pass because it was like, it's like a really shitty Borat, but it's like it's anti-trans. So cool, I guess. It's funny. Like Matt Taibbi being like, oh, yeah, normally I wouldn't care about that stuff. It was funny. And you're just like, yeah, but it wasn't. Come on. I mean, like anyone who watched What is a Woman can tell you that the only way you could possibly enjoy this is if you had some deep-seated prejudice and that you wanted to just have a film that kind of validates you a little bit. Like you wanted to feel seen, you know? You wanted some affirmation, let's say that. And so obviously, well, they're watching it all and they're enjoying themselves and they're just like, oh, okay, well, I'm glad that, you know, transphobic Borat at least is teaching the world about the woke mind virus and the trans ideology and stuff like that. For this one, where he's going Mr. Burcham, like full on fucking Babylon Bee style. Hey, this is my liberal character. Yeah, I'm a liberal character who drinks soy. Yeah, I'll drink soy. Yeah, and then I'll talk about colonization. It'll be really funny, and then everyone's gonna be like, "Hey, wait a minute, you can't say that." Fucked.
What is racism?
Martin Luther King said not to judge people by
Martin Luther King said a lot of stuff.
Is America inherently racist?
What the hell is that?
The word in
I'm glad that he's bringing back social experiments. You know, all the worst fucking, you know, sexual assaulty douchebag bros on YouTube who just realize, whoa, there's an entire economy for me acting like a complete piece of shit in public. But then I have to worry about the fact that I might be like sexually assaulting women on the street. So I'll just say it's a social experiment. It's a social experiment. It's just, hey, no. I was just grabbing your ass as part of a social experiment. There's a camera there. There's a camera there. Don't worry. It was not assault. It's a social experiment. Again, we were just trying to see how you reacted when I grabbed your ass on the street as a stranger. And yes, that's all.
inherent is challenging there. America is racist to its bones. All of the...
So inherently.
Yeah.
The entire system has to burn. And I'm not going to even use save this country. This country is not worth saving. This country is a piece of shit.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Again, it's got nothing. Like, you know what he's trying to do, you know, and you know what the whole premise of this is. And they've got the budget, they've got the cameras, they've got the lighting, they've got the whole setup. And like, oh, we tricked all of y'all into signing release forms. Here comes more racist Borat. More racist Borats here. But then, like, the whole sketch was literally that you just dropped a plate in front of them and then got an awkward kind of like, oh, that was not what I was expecting would have happened at that moment, but it did, and now it's over, and I guess we go back to our conversation.
Say I'm racist.
Joining us now is Matt, certified DEI expert.
Here's my certification. Where are you guys in your anti-racist journeys? So I'll look around the room and point to who we believe is the most racist person in the room. We want to rename the George Washington Monument to the George Floyd Monument. Would you mind signing it? You will? What do you think about this issue of heteronormativity and how it...
And again, like the whole bit being people might be like, oh, but Why? And then you find people who are like, oh yeah, sure, I'm fine with that. Yeah, I mean, George Washington was just kind of essentially a piece of shit. So, I mean, yeah, fundamentally, I'm okay with renaming the monument. Oh, wait, you're not okay. Oh, it's a part of our history.
It intersects with the broader structures of racism in society.
They gonna say I'm racist.
What's up with white people? What are you doing to decenter your whiteness?
Who's making it the center? Why are they doing that?
And what you're doing is you're stretching out of your whiteness. This is more for you in this field. White.
Folks.
White.
Trash.
White supremacy.
White woman.
White boy.
White.
Entitlement.
White.
Centering.
White.
Silence.
Is there a black person around here?
There's a black person right here. Does he not exist?
They gonna say I'm racist, but they call everybody racist.
Hi, Robin.
Hi. And what's your name?
I'm Matt.
Matt. Hi,
Yeah.
Matt.
Nice to meet you.
Just had to ask who you are because you have to be careful.
Never be too careful.
They gonna say you racist.
And like, I get for the Daily Wire crowd, especially the ending there, you know, Robin DiAngelo standing beside him and just like, whoa! But as someone who's hate watched a lot of Matt Walsh, I can tell you, of all his characters, and honestly, it's bereft of anything worthy of comedy, talent, entertainment. The worst, without parallel, is his liberal. That of all of his fucking bits, it's the worst one. It's always been the saddest one. He does not understand liberalism. He does not understand liberal values. He doesn't understand, you know, the concepts of, you know, more progressive values or perhaps even leftist literature like white fragility. You know, that would be too hardcore for him. You know, he's the kind of fucking mayonnaise is spicy as fuck type person. So even the liberal entry level fucking, hey, did you know, white people, that racism exists? It's true. I got the book here, White Fragility. We're gonna be giving it to Jimmy Fallon, and then Jimmy Fallon can actualize himself and then recognize his privilege. We're gonna see how that goes, right? Even that'll be a way too far for a Matt Walsh. But yeah, they're gonna get excited. The fun thing about this, Elon Musk got really pissed at Matt Walsh because it's being released in theaters. I don't know which theaters, and that's funny they're trying this again. Maybe it'll be successful because their only thing close to apparently a success was What is a Woman in terms of all of their movies so far, even though it was only released initially on the Daily Wire. Like, it had enough of people on Rotten Tomatoes eventually reviewing it. It had enough people talking about it. So it kind of felt like this was our one breakthrough film, you know, the one that we can submit to the Oscars kind of thing. So them going for another theatrical release, the last of which was a complete disaster, when they brought on basically Gina Carano, and then they're like, don't worry, we'll make you back into a star, baby. We're gonna put you in this Western, see? And then their own audiences rejected it because the idea of a woman who was powerful and fighting men was woke, and so they didn't want to watch it. No one did, and then it just completely bombed. I think it made like $1,300 in theaters, but we'll see. You know, maybe there's gonna be a lot of people who are just gonna rush to go see this, but I have a strong feeling this will backfire on the Joe Rogans, who again were just like fucking drunk on transphobia. That, like, I don't know how, if you're a lover of comedy like Joe Rogan actually is, because he's someone who is like, he's got a long history in the comedy scene, in the stand-up scene, and calling out joke thieves. You know, he's one of the people that took down Carlos Mencia for just straight ripping off other people's acts and stuff like that. So like, he actually is passionate about comedy. Amongst other things, horrifying things, but he's also very passionate about his transphobia. So for him, I think he was willing to kind of like give Matt Walsh a bit of a pass, because it's like, I mean, this is kind of cringe, but at the same time, like, you are making the woke libs look silly. So okay, fine, yeah, I mean, great work, yeah, brilliant. This one, I think it's gonna be a lot harder to swallow. Yeah, but I could be wrong.
Hey, if you'd like to unlock secret bonus episodes as well as uncensored content, go to patreon.com/The Serfs. This show is produced by Anna Loves Riley, Arian McCarthy, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hagbard Celine, Jimmy Sombrero, Voltimondi, Omni, Political Poppy, Preston Kroll, Quiet 185, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demel, Travis McClinton, Trincel, Words Greenwood, with additional support coming from all of these amazing human beings right here.